So I am thrilled to be back, and we're on class 7 of 8 with me on Be Your Own Therapist. And so it's kind of a bit of an adventure where we're going to end up each week. And so this week I thought I'd talk about and open the discussion up, get you all thinking about the power of objects and how all objects are not the same. You know, like for instance, we all like music, but the type of music we like can be really varied. And mostly with music, we're fairly accepting, you know, this is the music I love, this is the music I hate. That's kind of the way the objects of music sort themselves out. And I just let you be with the kind of music you like. That kind of works until we start having an argument. What's the better kind of music? And at least with music, we're pretty open about the fact that it's a ridiculous argument. Nevertheless, I have had conversations that have blossomed into arguments or very heated debates about which is better, which is right, which is wrong, which should be banned, which should be encouraged, all of this. So how come, even though we all love music, we have a totally different response? How can we have different tastes? And what kind of effect does that have back on us? So that's kind of one side of the discussion. The other side that I thought that we've all had is how we have, you know, favorite places that we go to. We have places that have really good associations. You know, like for instance, do you miss going to your local Dharma centre? If you came across Tuptim Norbuling before all the lockdowns, you know, and then we went into lockdown and now suddenly, you know, we can't visit our Dharma centre, or when you finally do get to visit and you walk in and you're just like, oh, I'm home. So that incredible feeling of relief, you know, it comes from the power of place. So what's going on there? We might also have places that we don't like to go to because they've got really traumatic associations with them. They carry those associations for us. And we've probably got objects at home that really mean a lot to us. They may have no monetary value, but if they broke or if someone threw them out because they just thought it was rubbish, you know, we'd be devastated. I remember in my teens, my mother threw out a pair of ripped jeans. Oh, and I could still see them and it still hurts, you know. And she's just like, oh, these are all dirty and ripped. You don't want them. Chuck them out. And, what happened? So the power of objects. So, yeah, we're going to have a look at what from our side, and then also because all objects are not the same, there is something also that comes from the side of the object. What gives it more power or not? And then what drives it? So hopefully we'll get to talk about that too, of what's called the reifying view and how to get out of the tyranny of the reifying view. So in that, I've got a really funny story about my Euro cruise. Which was like a stealth Dharma cruise. Actually, there was a lot of aha moments that happened to me. So when we're talking about objects, and I'll just say this before we kind of set our formal motivation, that we have, there's a wonderful teaching by Lama Yeshe in Wisdom Energy, the 6 factors that stimulate disturbing emotions. So they are 6 factors that when we have all 6 together, we have a perfect storm for delusions and disturbing emotions to arise in our mind. And when we look at those 6 factors, there's something we can do about each of them, which is great. It kind of breaks it down into manageable pieces. And so, of course, one of the factors is the seed in our own mind, the potential or the readiness for an experience to occur. So that's all on the side of talking about karma. But a really experiential way that we can think about that is the readiness in our mind for an experience. We're kind of primed. And there's that seed or that readiness that is there. Like, for instance, we all have the seed of anger. the potential for anger. But luckily at the moment, it's latent. It's not manifest. So it's not obvious to us. And so we may be tempted to think, oh, well, it's sweet. I'm not angry. But something comes along, an object, and what happens? It triggers our anger. Someone gets in our face, someone yells at us, we stub our toe, something breaks, the computer doesn't work, whatever, and then object, seed, and inappropriate attention come together, and bam, we've got a disturbing emotion. And normally what happens? We blame the thing, don't we? We think that thing made me angry. It's a little bit more in there, isn't there, in the equation? So most of the time as a Buddhist, we're looking within at the seeds in our own mind and the readiness in our own mind to become angry, our capacity for anger or our capacity for love or compassion. But we don't really know what's going on until we meet the object, until something triggers what's within. So today I thought we'd kind of go the unusual path and look at the objects. In a way, it's like looking at the easy thing first, but looking at it in a correct way. So we're not just blaming the objects, which is the ordinary thing to do. Get rid of all the things that annoy us as if that's going to work, because there's just going to be a whole stack of other things that start annoying us instead, whilst we have the capacity to be annoyed. But all objects are not equal. Some are more powerful than others, and we can have a very realistic approach that will keep us safe and that will stop us being triggered and stop us being traumatized, and make sure that we're inspired instead, that all the objects around us bring out the best in us instead of triggering the worst in us. So with that, let's just do our motivation. So here we are in our course, Be Your Own Therapist. Such a wonderful course from Thupten Norberling. What an excellent ongoing project to be having, and I'm thrilled to be part of it. So let's set our motivation. What is the purpose of being alive today? It must be something more important than drinking coffee. Today, I'll develop bodhicitta, leading to the peaceful path of liberation and full awakening for the benefit of all beings. From this moment on, until I go to sleep, I shall stay aware of every action of my body, speech, and mind. And wherever possible, I shall try to help. And at the very least, I will not harm. So adjusting our motivation so that it incorporates our starting point where we are right now, but it opens up. It becomes much more than our normal default. And perhaps we'll even see why it is that much of our day starts with just an obsession for coffee. Okay, so the 6 factors that cause the disturbing emotions to arise. We have the seed, the readiness within our own mind. Then we meet an object. So an object doesn't necessarily just mean a thing. It could be a person, an event, a place, a sound, anything that carries associations. So far, no problem, subject meets object. But when it's combined with what's called inappropriate attention, which is our attachment, our frustration, aversion, jealousy, panicking, freaking out, grasping, pushing away, wanting, whatever it is, all of that inappropriate attention that's really exaggerated, then we have a problem. Then delusion arises. So we've got those 3, the seed or the readiness, the object, and then inappropriate attention. And once we have inappropriate attention, a delusion arises. Then we're in big trouble. And then the whole thing plays out. The other 3 of the 6 factors are also really interesting. And we talked about them earlier on in this series. So one is the media, or where we get our teachings from. So how to figure out what we can believe in. Really important. And false teachings, or placing our trust in something that, you know, has a hidden agenda, for instance, or just doesn't have the wisdom, we can get into real trouble, even if we're sincere. Then there's also society, our peers, who we spend time with, that influence us. And so if you've ever lived in a Buddhist household or lived in a non-Buddhist household, there's a really big difference just with the amount of time you spend with people, how it affects us. So society, media, and then the very last one is our habits, our momentum, our karmic momentum also is one of those 6 factors. So of course, when we have all 6 at play, whoa, it's really hard to shift our problems. So when we're talking about the delusions or the disturbing emotions that arise, they're there, the readiness is there, but they can't actually arise until we meet an object. So without seeing an object, coming into contact with somebody, or just recalling them in our mind, you know, someone that we like, we either see them or we remember them, but without that object arising in our mind, in our experience, we can't develop attachment. We still have, for instance, the potential for attachment, but it's latent. When we meet the object and inappropriate attention comes in, then attachment arises. Without recalling or seeing a disagreeable object, aversion can't arise, hatred can't arise. So it doesn't, the object doesn't have to physically be there in front of us. We can just think of someone we don't like, and we even have a physiological response. You know, it might make us a bit sick in the stomach, or we might break out in a cold sweat, whatever it is. They may even be dead, but they're still an object in our mind. If we're bombarded with advertising, then the seeds of dissatisfaction very quickly ripen. This is why advertising works, because the exposure. Advertising agencies know all you have to do is just expose people to the object and it'll have an effect on us. Doesn't even actually matter whether it's a very good ad or not. So there's this wonderful story of His Holiness the Dalai Lama tells of when he was giving teachings in a particular city, where and they drove from the hotel to where the teachings were, and along the main drag, and it was a like the high tech kind of, all the computer shops, all the gadgets, you know, it was the main drag for all of those shops. So as they're driving past, he's looking at all the signs in the shops. And he said, you know, in the first couple of days, he didn't even know what those shops were or what those gadgets were. He had no idea. But by the end of the week, he's saying, oh, I'd like to have that one. He's getting interested in wanting them. So I'm hearing this story and I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, like if that happens to His Holiness, what hope is there for me, you know? So of course, His Holiness just saw the process happening in his mind, but there's no inappropriate attention there. So the whole thing doesn't kick off. But for us, because we have inappropriate attention, then we start grasping and wanting and overestimating and all of those things. So you can, to a degree, try and just avoid a whole lot of those distractions, like, you know, the junk mail or the emails. Before I have my look at my emails in the morning, I want for nothing. Then I see my emails and it's like, hey, buy this, or look at this is our new product, or whatever. And by the end of that 10 minutes, I want all this stuff just by seeing it. Renunciates, monks and nuns, this is what they're actually renouncing, to be able to just clear the decks and get rid of as many objects or potentials there, triggers, to free up some mental space. So it definitely works. It's not the ultimate thing to do, but it does clear the space in our mind. It clears enough space that then we can start looking within and see what's happening and actually work on the root cause, those seeds, the potential for attachment or aversion. So I remember this other story of a meditator, a monk who went to do a retreat in a cave, you know, away from advertising, away from family, away from all the gadgets, phones, computers, whatever. Fantastic. You'd think you'd be free. So he's sitting there in his meditation room in this nice kind of renovated cave, and it's all really quiet, and, you know, just a little breeze and the birds tweeting and the babbling brook where he gets the fresh water. And after a while, he's hearing the sound of the brook, blah, 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 and what he's hearing in his mind is, you're a hopeless meditator, you're a hopeless meditator, you're a hopeless meditator. You know, the sound of the water. Anyway, of course, he didn't quite catch what was happening. So he went out to the creek and rearranged the rocks so that they'd say a different thing. Isn't that sweet? And that's kind of how we are, isn't it? We're just rearranging the rocks, aren't we? So we can't entirely escape, but at least in retreat, we get to see it for what it is. But unless we actually make some space, we can't even get started. So I have a screen share here just with some of these points. So when the subject, which is us, meets an object. So what we can think of objects as triggers. This is the current term that we use in our modern society, a trigger. And we even have trigger warnings, don't we? Because just hearing about traumatic events can re-traumatize people who've been through events like that. But an angry person in front of us, someone manifesting aggression or rudeness, is a trigger for our own retaliation, our own anger and aversion to arise. A delicious cheesecake, chocolate cake, whatever it is a trigger for our own attachment. But in the heat of the moment, how many of us recognize, oh, this is a trigger? Someone's being really rude to you. We never think of them, hello, here is my trigger. We just go, it's your fault. So this is a real problem. Right there, we've got to remember, yes, something's happening, but it's not the root cause, it's the trigger. And we have to train in words to remember this. Delusions cannot arise without first meeting the object. So a couple of things that for many years have been my favorite things, high heels and champagne. So, you know, how ironic. Here I am, I volunteer in a Dharma center where you take your shoes off. And yet, I see a pair of really nice high heels, I'm a goner. A really strong trigger for my attachment. Alcohol now, not so much. Now I've seen through that it is a trigger and it's not the thing. And so it's been, you know, over 20 years since I've drunk, which is fantastic. So we are bombarded with advertising, with images online continuously. And so the seeds of dissatisfaction, they will ripen. They could have been there latent. We could have been happy, free, undistracted, content. But the moment all of these things come up, then it triggers all of those negative seeds. So the objects, they're not just random. They're actually, the technical term is a related object. It's not just any old object. It's one that's related to us. So when our seed meets the conditions that are going to ripen it, then we're set off, then we're triggered, then a delusion arises. So, for instance, the objects may differ, even though the feelings are universal. So coming back to this thing with music, so we all love music. But I'm going to stop the share and put it onto gallery and just see. So who's here? So let's start with you, Greg. So what's your favorite music and what's your worst music?
Let's see, my favorite. Oh man. Well, I am a singer-songwriter, so I kind of like that kind of stuff. I like a little James Taylor, some Eagles, give me some soft rock.
Uh-huh. And what's
then,
something that you just cannot handle?
Oh man.
Just one.
Rap. It's
rap.
tough.
Okay.
It's tough.
Excellent. Great. Okay, so Brian, have you got a voice that you can tell us what's your best and what's your worst music?
Well, I kind of like everything from ABBA to metal. It's really mixed. But the two genres that I just don't understand is country music and rap. I think I love to hear talented people that have voices sing. So I have a hard time with rap. I know it's like poetry, but it's like I want to hear these really talented people sing to me.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, Shayla, what about you? Can you?
60s rock, and I struggle with rap as well. And not just any rap, it's the rap that disparages or, says horrible things about women and
yeah, misogynistic rap. Yep, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okie dokie. Alicia, what about you?
I like kind of folky sort of music like Mumford and Sons or I kind of, and I used to hate country music, but actually listening to kind of a lot of acoustic kind of folk music, I've started almost kind of bordering on country, which has been an interesting shift. But kind of everything I love. The one I would struggle with is maybe like the thrashing death metal. That's never kind of done a lot for me.
Okie dokie. Excellent. Thank you, Alicia. And Michael, what about you?
Well, there aren't many kinds of music that I don't like. I mean, I like everything from medieval music through classical and Baroque and all that, but then also through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. The two things that I mean, I agree with Shayla that when rap is like it's about Kildy White Band and misogynistic and I didn't like I don't like that. It's the words. It's not so much the music. It's the words. But then with what Alicia said is heavy metal and particularly what I call the heavy metal of classical music, the classical music that came from the early 1900s into about the 1930s, where it always just sounded like everybody was just warming up the entire thing. And it just never made any sense to me as opposed to all the other classical music.
That's great. The heavy metal of classical music. Yeah. I get you. Okie dokie. And Sergio, what about you? Are you able to unmute and let us know, or you can? Oh, yeah, go for it.
Hi, hello. Yeah, like most people, I like all music, but I don't like anything that's rude, like the Sheila and Michael were saying, where it's misogynistic or just unkind. So yeah.
Okie dokie. Fantastic. Thank you. And Barbara's just come on. Barbara, we're just talking about, just so that I got some examples to use of what's your favorite music and what's the music that you just cannot abide.
I like a specific kind of jazz that is very repetitive. Like it is, it's a little bit free in the music. I don't know what genre of jazz it is, but I like that kind of repetitive beat. It's just like ping, ping, ping.
More Coltrane or more Mingus? or more swing?
No, not swing. I'm going to go with Mingus because I don't know who that is.
Oh, okay, rightio. And what about what you can't stand?
I like so much, but I don't. I think that modern country is something I don't really like that much.
Okay. Right. So this is excellent, isn't it? So it's varied, isn't it? What people say. And a couple of you have, you know, there's similarities, but a couple of you said, you know, you love country on the one hand, and the others like don't like country. So, you know, I really like I do like rap, but I really like Pakistani rap or Afghanistani rap, where it's in another language and it's really fast and rapid fire. And there is also a genre of like deep South American rap, which is really laid back. That's fantastic. You know, it's got like slide guitar in it. But what I really love is what's called industrial music, which is just like all of the scraping of metal and just like raking the inside of your eardrums style of singing. I just love that. In fact, I love the sound of industrial sites, like building sites and jackhammers and all that. I just love it. What I cannot handle is like easy listening with English words. Part of it's because I have autism, and so I'm really sensitive to words. So I can listen to any kind of music as long as it's in another language and it's okay. But once there's English words, it just becomes an earworm. And so my very best friend, Pearlie, who's a singer, I can't even listen to her latest CD because I've got to put aside 3 months because the words go in and it just plays 24 hours a day. When I'm awake, when I'm asleep, I might sing Pooja. The moment the tune is stopped, that tune's back in again. It just haunts me. So I can't handle any easy listening with words. So there you go. But all of this, probably none of you would like my industrial music. You'd just probably run screaming from the room. So why is it that it makes me happy and it makes someone else cringe? Why is this? And luckily we're all Buddhist, right? So we're not going to argue and say, no, we should ban rap music. Rap music is bad, and we should make everybody listen to, you know, to Dolly Parton. Like, no one's going to say that. Though in history there have been many times, right? Record burning. In fact, my ex-dead husband, his parents they burnt all of his records, literally. They were fundamentalist Christians, and they were so freaked out by his music tastes, they took his records and they burnt them in the front yard. So we know that just burning a record, having an argument, is not going to change our music taste, for starters. But why do we have different music tastes? And it's such a good example, because we know it's silly to say this is the right music and this is the wrong music. We know that. We know that it's a personal thing, and it's a personal thing because of our own associations and triggers and karma. And with music, we can see we've just got to be reasonable, isn't it? Everyone, each to their own. But it's the same with everything else. with ideas, with political views, with things that we're interested in, with things that, you know, how we should be educated. It's so personal, and we start projecting outwards like this is right and this is wrong. But actually, with the music example, what we could see is that there is no ultimate right or wrong, and there's no ultimate good or bad. Even when we're talking about philosophy, you can't say this is good and this is bad, because it all depends. And it depends on so much, on the situation, on the person, on the circumstances, the backstory, the result, the motivation, all of that, it all depends. So at least with the music example, we get a chance to just relax a bit and to practice relaxing and to practice recognizing, it's not in the object. It's not in the object. It's in our relationship to the object. So the feelings are universal. Our love of a particular sound, our hatred of a particular sound, that's a universal thing. But as to what the sound is, that changes. And of course, because we think it's in the object, that's where we get into conflict. If we just recognized, oh, no one wants to be forced to listen to what they hate, and everybody gravitates to the sounds that make them feel good. If we recognize that it wasn't in the object, that it's back on the person, we'd naturally be so much more peaceful with each other. So the music's a great one to catch ourselves out, how we just by habit always think it's the object's fault, and therefore if we got rid of the object, we'd be happy. But clearly, with music, that really shows us it's not like that. Questions or comments about this, putting it onto the object or back onto ourselves? Anything at all? We'd probably have a very interesting Buddhist concert if we put us all together. Actually, it'd be really interesting. I'd like to go to that concert.
I don't think you'd like my easy listening options, my James Taylor.
Probably not. No. No. But so there you go. I'd have to go la 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 la. So the feelings, the objects may differ, but our feelings are universal. And this means there is no ultimate good or bad. That's the learning from it. So then let's have a look at other powerful objects. So I've put a whole bunch together. So first off, addictions. Powerful objects, things that we can get physically addicted to. Drugs, painkillers, alcohol, you name it. When we have a physical addiction, it's both. We have not just the physiological effect, but we have the mental one as well. So it's a double whammy. With addictions, there's also addictive behavior that becomes addictive, like, for instance, gambling. So gambling is actually, it ends up being a physical addiction, even though gambling is not it's not a substance we put in our body. But the way that the algorithms work, especially like on the pokies, is designed to operate neurologically as an addiction. And it's honed that way so well that you neurologically are addicted. So you become physically addicted to gambling, which kind of blew my mind when I found this out. It's not anything to do with, have some self-control. It is as physically addicting as painkillers, for instance. So also computer games, not all of them, but most of them are, and Facebook, the way that it's designed, the bottomless bowl, just keep going more and more, just a little bit more, and that fear of missing out, it's right in there. Social media. So all of those things, because they create addictions, not just psychological addictions, but they're neurological that becomes physiological, we have to watch out for them. We can't underestimate their power or we get in trouble. And so we see that with not just kids, but adults, our complete addiction to our gadgets and device that is hardwired now into our brain. And as Glenn Svensson says, it's a disaster for concentration. So just recognizing that's a powerful object, that's more powerful than, say, getting used to having a walk every morning. It is actually, it really gets us in its grip. So there are some powerful objects that we must recognize. if we want to stay safe. Then we've got places. So the power of place is amazing. So sacred sites, cathedrals and temples, massacre sites, and nostalgic locations. So we have various sacred sites in Australia, and Uluru used to be known as Ayers Rock, you know, is probably one of the most famous ones right there in the center of the continent. And that place, I mean, we had the amazing opportunity to go to Uluru when His Holiness the Dalai Lama came to Australia, and went to Uluru and met the traditional custodians there and gave a teaching at Uluru. And so a few of us got together, because we all stayed overnight, and we went out into the desert in front of Uluru, and we did a recitation of the Golden Light Sutra as like a way to say sorry. It was like our sorry offering, you know, for stealing this land, you know, the invaders of this land, as a peace offering. And so we're reading there under this enormous vault of sky, some of us with paper, some of us on our devices, reading this sutra into the desert. We went to the teachings of His Holiness, and I kid you not, for about 3-4 months afterwards, I had the most amazing dreams. And I had dreams of being out in the bush, of being really safe and calm, of being kind of blessed by Aboriginal elders. It was just had this extraordinary effect, really deep in my psyche. And that gave me a glimmer of what this power of place has, that if this is your land, if you are the custodians of this land, you're intricately bound up with it. And it's a way to get home to within yourself. And also, if you're separated from it, it's very difficult to be able to get home within yourself. So the power of place, sacred sites in particular. So from a Buddhist point of view, Uluru is seen as a powerful Hayagriva place. The whole place is red. There's iron in the rock that it's almost like magnetizes you. So your mind changes when you go to these places. And from a Buddhist point of view as well, there are many holy sites in India and Nepal and you know, up in that area, where if you go to those places, your whole nervous system is blessed. Your chakras, your channels, everything is blessed just from the power of connecting with that place. So that's a really good thing to keep in mind, that you can go to a holy place and you can feel very depleted in energy and you can be rejuvenated. This is, you know, really good news. There are also other places where there's been massacres in Australia. So Byron Bay is one, Nimbin is one, and more recent history, Port Arthur down in Tasmania. So where there have been massacres. So Nimbin had massacre of many Aboriginal tribes and families. And so even though lots of people are attracted to this really nice area, psychically it's got really difficult and fractious energy. So it's not peaceful. And if you go to Port Arthur where the massacre happened, you feel it. You feel it's like an echo there, and it affects you psychically. You feel really, you know, I've been to places in Latvia where the KGB would torture people, and you walk in and you feel it like a psychic echo. So if you are in a place like that, you don't even know it's that kind of place, but it's going to affect you. So it's worth kind of figuring it out and paying our respects as well. The other power of place is if you've ever associated places with like your partners. So my parents, when they split up, my mother had to leave Melbourne because there were so many places in Melbourne that she'd associated with her husband that when they split up, it's like she couldn't go anywhere. She couldn't go to any coffee shops. She couldn't take the tram down a particular road. It's like, forget it, let's just leave town. So you might have places like that too, where you can't go to a place, or where you like going to a place. You know, maybe it's somewhere your dad took you every day, every birthday or something, and so you like going to the place. See, it's all tied up, isn't it? And once we're there, it's not conscious. It just all happens. We're triggered. So there's a power in there that we can harness if we're aware of it. And really, that's why it's so important to go to Dharma centers, to go to those holy places. There's a couple of other things too. So then, kawaii, when an object carries hope or cuteness. So why is it that when people are sick in hospital, they're often, you know, people often bring them teddy bears, grown-ups, they bring them something nice and soft and cuddly. Bring them a teddy bear to comfort you. And it's not just that, but like mascots, you know, so you have mascots for the Olympics. And I remember with when there was the earthquake in Japan, the really big one, and they got this kind of mascot to give to all the kiddies and the orphans and things as a way of carrying kindness and compassion. So you give them this little teddy bear, and suddenly it triggers this feeling of warmth and care and compassion. So that also is really powerful. And it's not just for kids. I mean, it's for grown-ups. And even that's why I wore my dress today. So, Michael, you know, I've got the Powerpuff Girls or whatever they are. I didn't even know who they were. I just saw these cartoons and thought, oh, they're great. I'm going to stick them on my dress. And I started wearing this dress, and everybody would just be happy. They'd see me and they go, oh, and I go, what? So there you go. Instant association, the power of objects. And all of this stuff comes up. Anyway, it turns out that they're pretty cool girls, which is just as well. You know, they're not some like hideous rap artist insignia that I got really wrong and inappropriate. At least they're cute little girls. But there's associations right there, isn't it? Then we have, what else? We have the power of objects in terms of time. So times of the year. So if you've had someone really close to you die at a turning of the season, for instance, then when that season turns each year, it's associated with them. And so everything comes back. And a while ago at the bus stop, I met this little old lady. So she's a bit freaked out because she's sitting next to this giant with pink hair. So I try and have a nice chat and kind of normalize myself. And so we're having a chat. And she said she hates Christmas. She's like in her 80s. And because in her 30s, her husband died on Christmas Day. And so, you know, most people 50 years later would have gotten over the death of their husband. But because it was associated so strongly with Christmas, every time Christmas comes, she's re-triggered. And because she hasn't kind of figured that out, it just gets her every time. It's not that you can't do anything about it, but if you don't recognize that it's happening, there it is. So many of us are triggered by, you know, seasonal affective disorder, by anniversaries or traumatic events. You might find yourself getting really depressed and you don't know why. And then you remember, oh, that's right. You know, it's that time when I had that abortion when I was a teenager and so regretted it. And it comes upon you without your consciousness. It's just there as a habit and being re-triggered. So, you know, we find ourselves inexplicably sad. It's kind of worth checking. Is there some power of object at work here? And then we have the power of sound. So of hymns, of mantras. In advertising, they know the power of just one little sound. So each brand will have their color, their logo, their saying, and a sound. And once I found this out, I've been listening out. So on the ads, they'll always play, it's like half a bar, maybe one bar, just a few notes, but it's a particular sound. So Chemist Warehouse has this particular electronic little beep that happens. And so you hear it and you're triggered. Everything that you know about Chemist Warehouse comes in. There's a health fund, and it's got this funny little warbling, just like a little bit like a sound of a choir, just one person singing though. And it's funny because it's almost insane sounding. It's like someone about to crack, but it's nice. So it's right on the edge. It's a very interesting sound to associate with a health insurance fund. So this is part of your homework. Next time you hear an ad, listen out for the sound. It'll happen at the beginning or the end or both. It's just one sound. It'll be there. And listen out. See how many you can pick. So that power of an object of sound, boom, there we are, triggered. So what do we have with Buddhism? The sound of the bell. So, you know, when someone's using their bell and dorji and you just hear it, doesn't everything come back to you? Isn't it just there like that? And incense. So it's great. You know, you walk into the Gompo and you have the beautiful smell of Tibetan incense. You know, it's a really nice smell. So sometimes if I'm walking through the city, you walk past a hippie shop, sometimes they're also burning really nice incense. And immediately my thought is, oh, it's time to meditate. So that's there for a purpose. The whole Tibetan Buddhist ritual is right there to trigger with the sound, the smell, the offerings. Everything gets associated, so it makes it instantaneous that we focus and we're there. So we don't have to put all of that effort in anymore. So it's very skillful use of objects. Okay, so the time, the anniversaries of a death or an abortion, traumas associated with Christmas or Easter, seasonal changes, hormonal changes. So that's all the negative ones, but also positive ones like, there's one in Brisbane too, when the jacarandas come out. All the uni students get depressed because jacarandas come out at exam time. What a terribly sad association. And holy objects, holy relics or statues also have this incredible power on us from the power of the object. You know, the Buddha left behind relics that he said, this is as if I'm here, you know, once I've passed away. And Geshe Lama Konchog too left behind all these incredible relics. You're in the room with those relics, you feel different. It's not a matter of belief, because you take your pets into a room with holy relics and they also feel completely different, act completely differently. It goes in really deep, affects our psyche. And being in the presence of holy beings, like His Holiness, like, you know, when people are in the presence of Gandhi, like anyone, you feel different in their presence. It has this powerful effect on us. So how this works, normally when the power of objects affects us badly, that you know, triggers the negativities, it's because of the tyranny of the reifying view. So what this means is we think that the object out there is the cause of our pleasure, rather than our own capacity for pleasure being the cause of pleasure. So our own capacity to feel pleasure determines if we feel it or not. But because we have the reifying view, we think it comes from the object out there. In advertising, it's called commodity fetishism, which they got from Karl Marx. We impute qualities that are not there in the object. We impute them onto the object. So for instance, you know, diamonds are a girl's best friend. So diamonds weren't always special. They were made special by De Beers because they, you know, held on to them, made them rare, and then we imputed all of this stuff onto it, romance and meaning and preciousness, but it's manufactured. It's not there in the diamond. There's also a funny story about commodity fetishism with chocolate. So chocolates, of course, there's so much associated with chocolates, isn't there? As we associate them with special times. Up until COVID, pretty much the only offerings anyone brought to puja were chocolates because we associate them as being special occasion. So I remember hearing about Cadbury with their normal blocks of chocolate, and they thought they'd modernize, and they changed the shape of the little, you know, the squares of the chocolate, and they rounded the shape. So, you know, we can all imagine right now a classic block of chocolate and that slightly sloped shape of it as, you know, rectangle, tiny little curve, tiniest little curve. Anyway, they modernized it to make them much more bulbous. And so what happened? They got deluged with complaints from people saying they've changed the flavor of their chocolates. What have they done? They taste disgusting. Can you believe that? They did nothing except change the shape. So right there, commodity fetishism at its most subtle. We impute so much onto those objects. So the other thing is my cruise example. So, okay, so how it appears isn't how it exists. And yet we think it does. And there's the rub. So, you know, a bodhisattva on the path of seeing, they have the appearance, but they don't fall for it. We have the appearance and we fall for it. That's where the problem is. So my cruise, I went on one of these very expensive cruises. It was great. It was like my little stealth Dharma holiday. And there was lots of champagne and all sorts of things. And food. Oh my God, like an embarrassing amount of food. And every morning the butler would knock on my door and go, "Good morning, Miss Miffi," and bring in croissants and coffee on a tray. And so I'd get up and I'd try and take the tray off them. They, no, you sit down. They wouldn't let me. They'd put the tray down, they'd arrange it all, they'd fluff the cushion up, and off they go. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to let them do their thing. So I was deeply uncomfortable about being waited on like this. So the only thing that I could do was self-generate as Tara and have them that they're offering to Tara, and then that way they're making all this merit they don't even know. Anyway, so then there's dinners, and there's just all these different courses, and each one's even more amazing. So again, I'm like just got to offer it all. And then one of the dinners, you get to have it, they cook it in front of you and the captain's there, and it's like it's beyond the beyond, and they've built it all up as this thing. And the amount that people have as entertainment. So I'm there with these 8 people, total strangers, and just my mind is blown by that stage. And both the people on either side of me, they're complaining. And I'm like, how is this even possible? So what the lady is saying is, every time something delicious is put in front of her, she'll go, "Oh, this is so beautiful. Tomorrow's dinner is going to be a huge letdown." And I just couldn't compute. So this is this thing where even you can have the most amazing things that the world has to offer put down in front of you. But if you don't have the capacity for enjoyment, you can't enjoy it. You're going to find fault. Your mind is going to go to everything that's wrong with it rather than everything that's right with it. And because it was such an extreme example, you know, that the more beautiful it came, the more worried she got about tomorrow, the more complaining. She's like, oh, I'm eating so much today, I'm going to be really hungry tomorrow. Like all of these things, I just never heard it before. And it hadn't been so clear to me that, you know, we grasp after these objects thinking they'll bring us happiness. And in a way, whilst we can't get those objects, we still hold out hope. We still think, oh, yeah, maybe if I just got a better one, or maybe if things worked out a bit, then I'd be happy. But here I was on this cruise where you got everything and it was perfect. So it became very clear. It doesn't matter how much you get or how brilliant it is, more and more and more, it's just not going to work if you can't be happy within yourself. It really blew my mind. So that was worth the price of the cruise. Because after that, it like broke that thing of just grasping after more, better, more, better. Unless it's shoes and books, which I know it's a thing. I know it's not the shoes and books. At least I know that. But that thing of it's the capacity within us to experience happiness that determines whether we're satisfied or not. But commodity fetishism, or the tyranny of the reifying view, means we just hanker after those things. And while we can get a little bit and still hanker after more, we're just sucked in. So here's a quote from Buddhism for Dummies. To recover from addiction, alcoholics must remove the illusion that intoxication is happiness. In reality, alcohol brings misery to themselves and others. So free yourself from the illusion that external objects are a true source of happiness. To break the addiction to the world of ephemeral pleasures, we must look within and be content with less. So what can we do? Does this mean we've got to become a hermit? Does this mean, okay, all of these things have such a powerful effect on us, what can we do? Actually, it doesn't mean we have to become a hermit at all, because remember, it's not the things, it's our relationship to them. So first off, caution. So keep a respectful distance from dangerous objects. So for me, you know, at shoe shop sale time, don't go to the shopping centre. It's that simple. Don't just delete the Amazon app on my phone. The real hard thing is when we go to the gallery and there's the bookshop right next to it. That's really hard. So I've tried all sorts of things there to take a really small bag. That doesn't work. I just end up buying a bag to go, not looking, not going in, and then like, just bust and end up going in. So then it's like, take a pal with me, someone who's going to just help me keep my head on my shoulders. But either way, I've just got to know that's my weak spot. And that's the thing. We just have to be honest with ourselves. What is it that is our weak spot? And rather than try and be all and nothing, just try and work with it. And the things that are really dangerous, like things that are physical addictions or like gambling, to just not go. That's where we have to be disciplined. And so one of the sayings that will really help with this is to say to yourself, you can have anything you want, just not that thing. And that is very skillful. It's like Miffi, you can drink anything you want, just not the alcohol. So, you know, there's mocktails, there's coffees, there's, you know, delicious bubble teas, there's whatever, you know, there's the whole world of it, just not that. So instead of just saying a straight out no, this is a much easier way to do it. You can have anything that you want, just not that one. And how do we know that one? Because we recognize that's our weak point. So we've got to recognize what our dangerous objects are and have safety measures in place. The other one, abide in mental solitude. So, you know, monks and nuns are you know, they're renunciates. They don't have to worry about hair products, what to wear that day, hopefully even, you know, where the money comes or where to live. Not necessarily, but, you know, that's the aim. And so why? So that we can free up mental space. Here we are in the Western world, everything's so busy. So what do we have to do? We've got to, we may not be able to abide in physical solitude, but we can make some mental space. So that's like having that idea to be content with less. What I have is good enough. It's not perfect, but it's okay. We're in samsara, it's good enough. The burgers are better in Toshita, not here. And so that we can actually focus on what matters to us. And so the other thing, of course, is to make sure that the objects that we have around us at home are Dharma objects. They're Dharma advertising. So we use the power of objects to remind us about the things we want to be reminded about. And we've got to take steps to free ourselves from the attention economy. So to actually have like no times where you don't have the screens, where you leave the mobile outside the room, where you actually carve out time to sit and do nothing or to look at a view. A couple of other things about that. Yeah, so the ways to be free of the attention economy, it's not going to happen by itself. So there are various apps that you can put on your phone where they will they'll stop you browsing after 20 minutes. They'll just shut it down. They're really good. There are limits that you can put on gambling. You know, there are things that you can put in place when you've woken up fresh in the morning and you have the opportunity to make a decision. You can't wait till you're worn out at the end of the day. That's when everything's going to come in and get you. So before I go on, are there any questions about those kind of things? About, we don't have to become a hermit, but this is how we carve out some mental space. Any comments or questions at all?
I am okay with a cave just so long as it's renovated, like you were saying.
Hey, sorry?
I said, I'm okay with, you know, being a hermit in a cave just so long as it's renovated.
That's right. That's right. I want my ensuite in the cave, thanks.
Yes.
But actually, you know, so then even if we do have the leisure to do something like, in a way, going to a hotel could be a great way to do a retreat, because you've got room service. It's a very boring room. There's often no view to speak of. You've got air conditioning. It's cleaned. No distractions. So just unplug the TV, get them to take the remote control away, and then you're done. You know, so we can build in safety if we know where our weak points are. And as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, the real holiday is a mind free from delusion. So that's what we're working at. So the thing is, of course, we can't get rid of all the objects in the world, because it's not the objects that are the fault. It's our mind, it's our attitude, our capacity for distraction, our capacity for concentration, our capacity for being discontent, or our capacity for happiness. And so we do have to come back to the mind, but we can't do that unless we clear space. So this is like starting on the easy bit, clear some space. Another really easy thing that we can do is spend time with people that bring out the best in you. So people are like our objects. They're our sangha, our gurus, our spiritual peer group, you know, our Dharma brothers and sisters that we're trying to support, and they support us. I mean, we're here. We're here for each other. And it's important that the amount of time that we spend with people, that we are in the presence of people that are better than us and that therefore bring out the best in us. We have to expose ourselves to this. Because if we don't, then we are the one that has to be a good influence on everybody else. And, you know, for us limited samsaric beings, or at least for me, you can do that for a bit, but not forever, certainly not for 24 hours even. You need to have a bit of a break. So this way, expose ourselves to positive objects, including people. And then that way it's much easier to cultivate good behaviors and a happy mind. You know, so there are people that bring out the very best in you, and we've got to cultivate those people. And here's the last one. I know we've gone over time. No surprise there. Acknowledge milestones. So what this means when we acknowledge milestones is that the power of objects like birthdays and anniversaries, we can make them an event, so an object of time that has a positive influence on us. Because if we think back, I think back over my life, and many of the things, I just remember the bad things that happened and the places that I was associated with those bad things. So what about the good things? There's less of those. We have to manufacture them. So when you do your first Discovering Buddhism exam, have a party. Mark the occasion. You know, when the people at there were 5 people that first graduated from what's called the basic program at Chenrezig Institute, which is not basic at all. It's the same program the Geshis go through. And they do it. It's fast tracked. It's 5 years. And the first time that they had the first cohort of people, I took the train up to Chenrezig Institute with 5 bunches of flowers and 5 carters and offered each one of those people, because I thought this is momentous. And no one else kind of made a big deal about it because they were all just involved in it. But really, the occasion needed marking. And because I'd come all the way up on public transport and, you know, it'd been quite a big deal, and then I individually offered a bunch of flowers to each one of them, they all just started crying. So that made it memorable too. You know, people turn 16. There used to be debutante balls or like 21st. So those things, we've got to make Dharma ones of that. The first time you do a Lam Rim retreat, then, you know, that's you often do refuge at the end, but then have a party, really celebrate it. At the completion of a PhD, or, you know, you get your master's or something like that, you know, education, something like that. It's important to mark it with dinner with your very best friends, or to dedicate it and offer it to all sentient beings and offer it to your guru. When you get a new job, complete a meditation course, really reflect and rejoice, and do something that physical, that you in a special place, so you associate it all together. And in fact, there is a website that you can go to. I can't remember the name, but I'm sure if you Google it, it's like Make Your Own Ritual. And so it's a whole website where you say, this is the event. Can you design a ritual for me? And they'll go back and they'll look at history and they'll find out all the different things that people have done to mark that kind of event. And they'll put together a ritual and give it to you. So you can even outsource that. But that's why it's important. It's important that we do it. And so at least then when you look back in your life, instead of just having all the traumatic things trigger you, you're going to have really special things and Dharma things that will trigger you in a positive way and enthuse you to do more. So are there things, just before we finish, are there some things that you're thinking, oh yeah, I've got to mark the occasion? Dharma things? Anyone about to complete discovering Buddhism or do a retreat, do a Nyungne? You could celebrate Nyungne with big breakfast. No, surely there's something, there's an event coming up that you can mark. There's got to be. Even so, when someone's about to have a baby, you know, and everyone makes dedications, you know, I hope the birth is okay and, you know, the mother and baby are healthy. So don't just have it birthday, have it perfect human rebirth day. You know, become the fairy godmother, the Dharma fairy godmother. May they have the 10, you know, the freedoms and richnesses. May this not just be a human rebirth, but a precious, perfect human rebirth with everything necessary for Dharma practice. And become like a fairy godmother like that, because otherwise it's just going to be a wasted life. They're just going to use up all their good karma. So we've got to be in there and really bring the meaning, the essence to it. Why even? What can we do with this human life? So a birth instead of a baby shower, like a Dharma blessing shower, would be much better. Same with weddings, you know. So I've heard, like in the Buddhist world, especially in Singapore, when people get married, they'll sponsor a run of Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive booklets. You'll see in the front. It'll be often, you know, so someone's gotten married, they'll sponsor a run of 1,000 Dharma books to go out to create merit, to have a harmonious union. How awesome is that? Barbara.
Yeah, we're moving, and I've been thinking about all the places that I'm going to miss when our location is one state over from where the center is. So we're kind of like, you know, a day's drive or something like that. And it came into my mind that I'm going to miss the center. And I was like, wait a minute, I've never been there. I've only been on Zoom, and Zoom can come with me. So I thought about, like, when I get to my destination, which is like a 30-hour drive away, I was thinking about doing something that would like cement for me the fact that I'm still connected to the center, that it's not like I'm not leaving this behind.
Yeah.
So that would be my
yes. So some kind of ritual that you set up a really nice Zoom spot in your new home, and you take the same things, the same objects, and you place them around you. And then that will bring the power of place with you. People often do that who live in hotel rooms. They have just a few things, you know, like a pop-up altar and a this and a that, and they put their few things out there, and then they're home. So, you know, it's not in the object, but it helps you to reconnect. So even like, that's why we have an altar, isn't it? So you can do that, but you can also do like the power of, you can make your place a holy place. So, you know, even just reciting the mantra of dependent origination when you get there, and you bless the environment. And so then, you know, you say hello to being seen and unseen in that environment, and, you know, state, this is, you read the Heart Sutra, this is a holy place, this is a safe place for everybody seen and unseen. I seek to live in harmony here. You know, you go around with the incense, do a little sog offering. Wonderful. Then you've made your house a holy place. So be harmonious.
Thank you. Those are such beautiful suggestions. I'm going to get on that. I've got like about
good. Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
And, you know, like then when you go and visit someone in their new place, so in Latvia, we used to bring bread and salt, I think. But so I actually like bringing croissants and honey and chai. But you just bring whatever. You always bring something abundant to a new place to make an offering. It's kind of there in all of our cultures. So anyway, it's got you all thinking, and keep calm, stay positive, and we better dedicate. So here we go. Due to all the merits of the 3 times, accumulated by me and by others, merely by seeing, hearing, remembering, touching, or talking to me, may any being be freed in that very second from all their sufferings, diseases, spirit harms, negative karmas, and obscurations, and abide in the peerless happiness of full enlightenment forever. And so we can see, even with this dedication, may we become a power object for others that's beneficial, that brings happiness and a sense of safety, safe haven. May we embody all the Buddha Dharma for the benefit of others. Thanks, everyone. Hope to see you next week. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, Miffi.
Thank you.